Birds are fairly straightforward creatures. They're not going to come to your garden for polite conversation. They will come, however, if you feed them. Welcome back to Nature Garden Live. As a small child, you might remember going over to the park to feed the ducks, and you'd probably take with you a few slices of stale bread. But feeding leftover human food to wildlife isn't always a good idea. And if you're hoping to attract birds into your garden, you need to start somewhere else than that. The first choice is to decide what to feed them then. You will need to invest in some kind of feeding station. I've got two in my garden, and in this one I have seeds for the seed-eating birds. I've also attached a squirrel baffle, because otherwise squirrels will climb up the centre column and gorge themselves on what's in the containers, because they like seeds too. What kind of seeds might you get? Well, the key, I suppose, is to experiment. But I've found that for the local population of birds in my area, sunflower hearts are by far the most popular. You can get mixed seeds, and you can get specialist seeds like Niger for the goldfinches. But I've found that sunflower hearts seem to please most of the birds most of the time. Some birds are not seed eaters, and for those I've got here a second feeder with suet bars and a suet block. Some people find their birds are attracted to fat balls as well. On the top of this one I've got some apple, which I've found is popular with something like a black cap, but also it seems to be popular with the invasive species which we have here. Many people in London see them all the time, the ring-necked parakeet. I haven't found them to be a nuisance here. They don't seem to dominate. In fact, some of the smaller birds certainly hold their own on the feeders, and the parakeets have to wait their turn. Another important thing to consider is hygiene. Clean your feeders regularly, because otherwise, with the concentration of birds in a small area, you get the transfer of parasites and disease. You might also like to think about re-siting them on occasion. So where should you site them in the first place? Well, in my garden I've got a large apple tree, and I've put my two feeders near it so that the birds can first come to the apple tree and have a look round to see if there are any predators before coming out and landing on the feeder itself. If we now move on to attracting those animals that are much lower down on the food chain, i.e. insects, we can have a look at how to provide food for them as well. Now, in addition to my mini meadow, which provides flowers and nectar for the local insects, I've got this small clump of nettles, which are a kind of nursery area for our native butterflies. They're very popular with peacocks, red admirals, small tortoiseshell, in order to have somewhere to lay their eggs and then to feed the caterpillars that emerge. These ones are just beginning to provide the flowering fronds, and already I've seen various hoverflies around this particular clump. Everybody knows they can give you a nasty sting if you brush past them, but if you can find a place in your garden where you can avoid them most of the time, at least it will encourage butterflies into your area. The mini meadow is looking very green this year, and although there have been some buttercups and forget-me-nots, it's predominantly various grasses. So I felt I needed to give it a boost with some wildflower seedlings which I had grown on in the conservatory. I was also careful to source the seeds from native wildflowers. Where I am at the moment is on the corner of the small meadow, and it's where I used to have a bird feeder not so long ago, and consequently in the course of that time the pigeons have done their job in clearing up, but in so doing have trampled down everything and it's a bit flat and uninteresting. That's why I do recommend that you move your feeders every now and again. But what I'm going to do is freshen up this corner with these new seedlings, and hopefully that'll regenerate over the year and come to be the same height and interest as every other part of the meadow. Having a green woodpecker visit is one of the advantages of having a meadow area somewhere in your garden. Ants, this bird's staple diet, create nests in the long grass, hoping most predators will pass them by.